Hello and welcome to the sewing studio. Today I'm going to show you how to make the two blocks that are in this beautiful quilt. This quilt is called French Lace and it's by Pam and Nicky Lintott. And I'm going to show you how you make the blocks. So for this quilt, which finished measures 72 by 72, but you'll notice that there's two big borders. So if you wanted to make it smaller, you could. And I'm just going to talk you through the two blocks that we've used. So the first one is called a snowball block, and that is this block here. And the other block is a bow tie block, and that's the block that goes round the edge to form one of the borders. So for this, you will need a jelly roll plus one extra 2.5 inch strip. So you could either cut your own fabric if you wanted to. So this one's been done in this beautiful red, cream, pink, and I've chosen blues for mine. But you could choose whatever colour you wanted. If you couldn't find the jelly roll that you wanted, you could just cut 41 2.5 inch strips the width of the fabric. So my background fabric that I've used today is a grunge and it's called Whisper. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your jelly roll strip and you're going to cut 10 2.5 inch squares. So with this, you need to be really organised. You can see that I've got mine all clipped together because you need to keep your fabric choices together because we're also going to cut some little 1.5 inches as well. So I'd encourage you to be really organised with this and clip them all together or pin them together. So you're going to cut 10 2.5 inch squares because you can see you've got here 8 2.5 inch squares and then you've got another 2 for the bow tie block. So that's what your 10 are for. Now your piece of jelly roll strip, this is folded in half. So your piece of jelly roll strip that's left after you've cut your 10 2.5 inches, we are going to cut down. I've left mine folded in half because I think it's easier to cut. We are going to cut that down to 1.5 inches. And then what I would encourage you to do is to take that strip and put it with your 10, clip it together and then set it aside until you come to use it for your blocks. So first of all today, I'm going to show you how to make the snowball block. Now you'll need 2.5 inch background fabrics, and to do the whole quilt, you will need 4 meters of background fabric. Now some of that is for your 2.5 inch squares and some of that, as you can see, is for your 2 big borders. So we're going to cut 8 2.5 inch squares for this block, and I've started to do it already. So I'm just going to show you how we put the block together. So you're going to take a background fabric and you're going to take one of your 1.5 inch squares and you're going to lay that in the corner like this, and then you are going to draw a diagonal line. Now I've got a nice little ruler. I love this little creative grids. It's a 3.5 and it's just perfect for these smaller projects. So I'm just going to, in pencil, draw a line and I'm going to machine down that line to make, and I actually need to do this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I need to do this 8 times. Now what I'm going to say to you is when you do this, and I've got 2 here that I'm going to show you, what I've done is when I have sewn them, sometimes when you flip them, you can just see that that hasn't quite gone to the edge. The trick here is where you've got your pencil line, don't sew directly on the line. Let me get a pin and point it to you. Don't sew directly on the line, just bring your needle fractionally on the inside of the line, because I've done that with this one. And what that does is when you fold it back, you can see there that it comes right to the edge of your background fabric. And the reason that this is important is with this block, normally you would cut the whole thing off and flip it back. We're not going to do that because we're working with such small pieces. Again, another little tip is just cut your blue fabric, not your background fabric. We're going to cut that, and I will do this again in a minute to show you. So we're just going to cut that, nice sharp scissors, and then we're going to flip that back onto our white. And so normally you would do that, but because it helps to stabilise our fabric, because we're using such tiny pieces, just give it a little press, because that all helps. And I'd recommend when you've got your block together to give it a steam, because there is a bit of bulk, but it will help you with your accuracy because we're using such tiny pieces. So that's one of our blocks. So I'm just going to go to the machine. I'm going to do that again, and I'm going to demonstrate that we're going to sew just fractionally below the line. So I'm just going to carefully bring my needle down so it is just below the line. I'm not on the line, I'm just a needle's width below that line. And then we're going to set our seam and we're going to press it. So set our seam, and then we're going to press it over, and you can see because I've gone below the line just fractionally, just a needle's width, because the needle's width is the fold, and that's what makes it fit better. If we'd come on the line or above the line, you've got the needle's width and it makes the fold short. So I'm just going to cut away that extra bit of fabric there, using about 1/4 inch, and press that. So we're now going to lay our block out, so you can see that I've joined 2.5 inch squares either side of this one, so I need to turn it round the other way. So let's make this block work. So I have got those two, then I've got the next row, and the pattern does show you how to lay these out, and then the next row our blocks are the same as this way, but they're coming down. Hold on, let me get this right. Those ones are going up there. We'll get it right in a minute. So this is like, it looks like a bow tie block. So those are going that way. Then these are coming this way on our next row. And what I'm going to suggest is when you come to join these together, I'll show you again on this camera, that you, with your corner piece, you tuck it in and you sew down that way. So again, on this one, I want to sew down to tuck the corner in. So I'll be turning it over so I can tuck the corner in rather than sewing against it. So I'm going to put all of those together, and I'm also going to put the bottom row together, which is going to go like this, with my corner pieces going upwards. But again, when I sew it, I'm actually going to take it to the machine that way round and sew it down, so I trap the corner. I don't want to be sewing that way in case I flip it back on itself. So I'm just going to sew all of these together now to create this block. I need to go back to my 1/4 inch foot. Now we're going to press our block. And I would encourage you, when your block is all together, to use a bit of steam. I don't normally use steam, but because we've got that extra bit of bulk on some of the joins, where we've got 2 layers of fabric, where we've not cut our white away. But I would encourage you to do it like this, because it does help to keep it accurate, because these are just 1.5 inch squares. So, and it can move. So that is your snowball block, the same as that one. And to make a bow tie block, you just do in exactly the same way. You just need 1 piece of 2.5 inch background with your 1.5 inch square joined to a patterned piece, and the same again, but the opposite way round. So you can see that that creates a bow tie. So now we're just going to go over to the quilt behind me to see how it's all been put together. So we can see how this French lace quilt has gone together. So with our snowball block, it is 6 of those going across by 6 rows down. Now, if you just wanted to do that as a quilt and put a border on it, you could. But with this one, I love the way it's been finished off with our bow tie block. So our 6 rows of 6 of snowball blocks have been put together. Then there's a border, which is a 4 inch border. And then there's the bow tie block. And you can see the bow tie block goes that way, then that way, then that way, then that way. And then there's another border on the other side of the bow tie block. So again, you could make it as big as you wanted to. You could stop here if you wanted to, or you could put the other border on. I actually think this is lovely how it's laid out like that. And it really does remind you of lace, doesn't it? I love this binding, this lovely stripy binding. And I do like a stripy binding, as you know. And this is red and sort of a creamy taupe colour, which I love. And then wait for it, on the back, look at that for a backing. How amazing is that? I just love it. So again, we've got these beautiful swirls of long arm quilting, and I think it's absolutely stunning. It's really inspired me to make one. So I hope I've inspired you too. I'd like to say thank you to Pam and Nicky Lintott for loaning us this quilt, and I look forward to seeing you next time here in the sewing studio.